Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. The first thing is always, I hope everyone's well. Today is not a preview. I've already done my preview for St. Union Gilboa, the Champions League, so I will link that at the end and in the description if you want to watch it. Today is all about where Newcastle United are at. This season, we're going to compare our opening 6 games to last season and the season we finished fourth. And then I'm going to give you my opinion why we aren't really creative in our opening 6 Premier League games. So this is how the Premier League table stands at the minute. And after 6 games, we sit 15th. We've conceded 5, scored 4. So despite having one of the best defensive statistics in the league, we've conceded more than we've scored. So that goes to show that we're not firing on all cylinders. We've only won one of our opening 6 Premier League games. So that begs a question. Do we always stop early, or is this just a one-off? Or is it bigger concerns than what we're led on to believe? So I thought I would have a look at some of the numbers because I've had a little bit of a disagreement with somebody on Twitter. He's saying that in the season that we finished 4th, we only won one of our opening 6 Premier League games, which is correct. In my opinion, when it comes to the start of the season, it's not so much about the results. Of course, results are important, but it's more about the performance that gives you a better metric of what kind of season you're going to have. So I'm going to be breaking it down because, in my opinion, it is quite fascinating. So this season, we've won one of our opening 6 Premier League games. That was home to Wolves. Now, if you go back in the last season, we've only won 2 of our last 10 competitive fixtures, which doesn't look great. We're currently sitting 18th for XG this season. Only Burnley and West Ham have a lower XG than Newcastle United. We're sitting 19th for XG per 90 this season. Only Burnley have a lower XG than Newcastle United. Wolves have not won a game all season, but have a higher XG than Newcastle United. That tells you that we're not even creating and missing opportunities. Let's look at our XG and compare it to last season. When we drew 0-0 with Aston Villa, we had an XG of 1.24, which isn't too bad away to Villa. We got beat at Liverpool 3-2 with an XG of 0.98. We drew with Leeds 0-0 with an XG of 0.46. We beat Wolves with an XG of 1.55. Away to Bournemouth, we barely created with an XG of 0.14. And then at home to Arsenal, we had an XG of 0.61. So all of that equals an XG of 4.98. So let's compare it to the last season. Out of our opening 6 games last season, we won 3, lost 1, drew 2, and we had an XG of 8.4, almost double what we have this season. So what about the season that we finished 4th? Did we have a good opening to the season? Well, not quite, because we only won one of our opening 6 games, quite like this season, but there's a difference. And if you bring out the full context, that's the difference. So we opened the season with a win at home to Nottingham Forest. We had an XG of 1.74. Went away to Brighton, which is traditionally a tough game for Newcastle United. We had an XG of 0.22. At home to Manchester City, we drew 3-3 with an XG of 1.81. We then went away to Wolves, had an XG of 1.77. We got beat off Liverpool with an XG of 0.72. And then we drew at home to Bournemouth with an XG of 1.92. But again, our XG is almost double than it is this season. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, why are you talking about expected goals? Because in my opinion, it's quite important. Because although you might not win the game of football, if you're doing the right things and consistently creating for your team, eventually it will click. So I can imagine Eddie Howe looking at the start of that season and thinking, yes, we've only won 1 game, but we've looked threatening. We've proved that we can create opportunities and win games of football. Because I've got news flash for you guys. If you don't create opportunities, you don't score goals. If you don't score goals, you don't win games of football. If you don't win games of football, you don't qualify for Europe. So for me, I would rather create 100 opportunities, have my striker missing 100 chances than not create it all. When I'm analysing teams, I'm a lot more concerned when there's a lack of creativity rather than a lack of finding the back of the net. I'm not saying I'm panicking for this season because I do think there's been a lot of change and Eddie Howe is just adjusting a little bit. But what I'm trying to say is, if you just look back at that season and say, well, we only won one of our opening 6 games, for me, in my opinion, it's incomparable. And the reason being is because we look like we're going to win those games. If you look at that Leeds performance, if you look at that Bournemouth performance, if you look at the performance against Arsenal, we did not for 1 minute look like we were going to win that game of football. And that's my point. I don't know if you agree with that. So if I'm Eddie Howe, I'm concentrating more on the performances right now than the results. And this is not me being negative or saying I'm panicking, because I genuinely believe that we've got a better squad this season than we have over the past 4 seasons. So do I believe Eddie Howe will get it right? Absolutely. But I just think you cannot just sit there and say, oh, well, eventually it's going to click because we're doing the right things. We're actually not doing the right things. And I think Eddie Howe just needs to go back to what he was doing for us to get results. And that is because Eddie Howe has proven that he's very good at finding solutions. So I do believe he will eventually get there. But if we go back to that season that we finished 4th, if you only look at the opening 6 games, it is quite misleading, because that season Yes, we lost to Liverpool in the opening 6 games, but we did not lose another game of football in the Premier League till the 18th of February. That means we lost 1 out of our opening 22 Premier League games. And this is my point. If you can see that the performances are there, eventually it will click. Now, let me ask you a question. If you go back and watch those opening 6 games and then watch the opening 6 games to this season, the performances are chalk and cheese. Now, are you going to sit there and say, well, we've lost Alexander Isak, so we've lost our strike force? That is something I disagree with. Again, I'm sorry to do so, because that season, Alexander Isak did not start a game until Liverpool away, and we still managed to have a high XG every single game up until that point. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is, the performances have changed. We're not as expressive, we're not as creative, and we're a lot more defensive. And that's shown in the statistics, because this is this season's metric compared to last season. This season's in the blue, and the pink red is last season. As you can see, our counter-attacks have went down, our possession has went down, our attacking has went down, our goals have dried up, our pressing instincts have went down. The one thing that's went up is defending. So have we changed our mindset to defend rather than attack? So let's talk about what made us so special over the past couple of seasons. Firstly, I want to say we've played some lovely football this season. There's been moments where our sequences, our passages have been beautiful. That goal against Barcelona, for example. But where we do our best work is when we're in organized chaos, high pressing with intensity, being aggressive, winning the ball high up the pitch. We were known for our relentless energy, especially in transition moments. That's where we were at our most dangerous. And over the past couple of seasons, we consistently ranked amongst the top for distance covered per game. We did our best work when we attacked when the opponents were in a chaotic defensive state. So when they didn't have time to reset into their defensive shape. So by doing that, you've got to move the ball quickly and you've got to be direct, but you've also got to have people in advanced positions. So then you've got an option to be devastating in transitions. Now remember that, because I want to speak about how Arsenal broke us down and looked so threatening against us, because they did to us what we used to do to other teams. So what I'm saying is, the opening start this season, we have actually come away from everything we were good at last season. And I want to say it, I think the fundamental of our attacking brilliance was our press, and the statistics prove that. Now I want to give Eddie Howe the benefit of the doubt, because he has been a little bit unlucky going into this season. Anthony Gordon's red card hasn't helped at all. Johan Wissa's injury without even kicking a ball hasn't helped at all. Jacob Ramsey, who adds some dynamism to that midfield, hasn't helped at all. And the wingers all being out of form hasn't helped at all. Anthony Gordon's looked off it, Harvey Barnes has looked off it, Jacob Murphy hasn't looked right, and Anthony Langer's still settling. Now, one of my favourite scenes in football is, for me, the formation is not as important as you think. Now, everybody thinks it's because we're going to a back five. We've only went to a back five a couple of times this season. We've actually played with a 4-3-3 a lot of the time as well. It's the patterns and the way you want your players to behave, which is a crucial word on the pitch, which is more important to me. You can set up in your 4-3-3 just like you have done last season. But if you want your players to behave in a specific, in a different way, you will get different results. And I need to be brutally honest about what I see. And Eddie Howe is asking the players to behave in a different way on the pitch. And I want to take you to this because I was listening to Jamie Carragher last night. And thank you, Jamie Carragher. Because what am I talking about? About keeping players in advanced positions. If you consistently have players in a low block, then you're going to have no outlet. Think about that game against Bournemouth. Whenever our midfielders received the ball, we had no runners. Think about that game against Arsenal. Whenever we received the ball, we had no runners in behind. You're not going to threaten the opposition if you don't have any runners. Because what you do then is move the ball side to side. And that allows the opposition to get back into their defensive shape. So unless you move the ball quickly and early and directly, you're not going to create chances. Now, Jamie Carragher was talking about Crystal Palace here. Crystal Palace play with the back five. Now, you can clearly see the back five on the page there. But what they also do is keep 2 number 10s in advanced areas as well as a striker, because when they do overturn the ball, they've got an outlet. Their number 10s are a trigger, so when the ball is overturned, their number 10s start moving into the space that Jamie Carragher's highlighted. This is why I speak about the importance of keeping players in advanced positions, but also allowing your players to run in behind. Now, if we go to that Arsenal game yesterday, look at Arsenal's setup here. They're being brave with their movement and their positioning, and this was happening time and time again. Remember that penalty that Arsenal Arsenal got. This is where it come from. Eze picks a ball deep in his own half. Look at Gyökeres. He's on the right-hand side. But I want you to look at Saka. He's moved inside so he can make a run in behind. Saka creates a one-on-one here. He loses the ball and Jacob Murphy tries to play back in Nick Pope, and that's where the penalty comes from. So this is what I'm talking about. Look at Trossard's positioning. It's high. It's giving Eze options, because if Eze receives a ball here and Saka's not making that run, Trossard's not stretching the pitch, and there's only Victor Gyökeres to hit, more likely he goes backwards or sideways. And this picture is probably my favourite of them all, and I hate giving Arsenal credit. This is everything they didn't do last season, or everything they didn't do against Manchester City. Gyökeres receives a ball out wide. Look at Eze. He's using the space to his advantage. Arsenal hit the post from this moment, but it's all about runners into space, having options in advanced areas that puts them in a situation where they can be creative. Now, if you go back to Arsenal, when they played against Manchester City, they had 3 holding midfielders. That's because Mikel Arteta instructed them to. He wanted them to behave that way. They didn't really create. So against Newcastle, he brought in Eze, wanting them to behave differently to their old number 8. You can play the same formation, but it's all about the behaviours you want from your players. And I honestly do have a lot of trust in Eddie Howe, and I do think he'll get it right, but I just think he's instructing the players differently this season. And the statistics prove that, because where did most of our chances come from? It was being on the front foot, being aggressive, overturning the ball, and then we've got a lot of room to break into. And we haven't been doing that this season. We've been sitting more in a mid or a low block and not really pressurising the opposition. So when we do overturn the ball, we don't have those options in advanced areas, which is resulting in a lack of creativity. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom. I'm just trying to find a solution on how we can fix this, because I generally believe we need to be a little bit more creative. But I also believe that it will come within time. Once Nick Waldemurda gets used to playing in our system, once we get used to playing with him, and the return of Johan Wissa will help that. But just to go back on what I was trying to say, we have completely stopped pressing from the front. Last season, we were averaging 8.1 high turnovers per game. This season, we're only averaging 5.5. And we've also averaged less shots from high turnovers, decreasing from 1.39 to 0.87. Now, granted, 6 games is only a small sample size, but ideally, you want those numbers to be a little bit closer. High turnovers don't have to be from your strikers. High turnovers can be on the halfway line from your midfielders. During the 2023-24 season, we finished second from goals from high turnovers, and we scored 12 from just overturning the ball by pressing. Only Manchester City had more goals. Last season, we scored 9 goals from high turnovers. Those 2 statistics alone placed us among the top 5 clubs in the league for transitional efficiency. So what I'm trying to say, guys, our attacking brilliance stemmed from our defensive brilliance, and the 2 link in with each other. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, Nottingham Forest sat in a low block and they didn't press very highly, but look where they finished last season. And that is absolutely true. But if you look at their average positioning closely, 4 of their attackers averaged in the opposition's half, meaning when the defenders did overturn the ball, they had players in advanced areas to break, and that's what we need to get back to doing. So is it just a simple case of Alexander Isak's left? Well, if you look at Alexander Isak's statistics from last season, he scored 23 Premier League goals and provided 6 assists. So that meant he was directly involved in more than 40% of Newcastle's goals in all competitions last season, scoring 33.85% of them, which is incredible. So that probably does have something to do with it. But I do believe that Nick Waldemurda has proven that he can put away chances if you provide him service. Now, another statistics that proves that we're not pressing as highly or as intensely is passes from the opposition per our defensive action has increased from 9.8 last season to 13.2 this season. So that instantly tells you that we're less aggressive in the press because the opposition are able to move the ball around a lot better and more comfortably. And that's because we are sitting 5 yards deeper. So let's think about why Eddie Howe might be doing this. Champions League commitment is an obvious one because you want to dial down on your intensity to preserve legs, because we all know what happened last time we were in the Champions League, and that's probably scarred Eddie Howe a little bit. Injuries to players like Johan Wissa and then rotations from your wingers have made the pressing triggers inconsistent. So Newcastle United are now focused more on positional discipline rather than counter-pressing and proactively trying to hunt and win the ball back. So what that means is, now that we're sitting more disciplined, Bruno's not as high up the pitch. Bruno was our highest creator last season. He created the most shots in the Premier League, but with him being a little bit more disciplined in his positional play, he's not in those advanced areas to be creative. So with Alexander Isak gone and Nick Waldemurda in, the press lacks some explosiveness. Now, what we've also done is stop providing width. Let's take these 2 Arsenal games in isolation. Let's go back back to last season when we beat them in the Premier League 1-0 and we played a 4-3-3. Let's look at our last game where we got beat 2-1 and we played a 4-3-3. As you can see, the average positioning of each player is completely different. We're lower in our defense. We're a lot more narrow in our shape. So when we did win the ball, we didn't have any width. That's probably one reason why I didn't want to play Dan Burn at left back, because Gordon isn't a natural touchline winger. Our width on the left-hand side especially comes a lot from our left back, and Dan Burn is naturally a centre back, so he's not comfortable going into those advanced areas. But the difference in shape, in formation, and behaviours from the team is there to see. And this is what I'm talking about. If we just move 5 yards up the pitch, we squeeze Arsenal and prevent them penetrating through the line. But if we also create width, that creates space for us to run into, because it pulls Arsenal's players out of their position. And that is what you want to do in a game of football. We were too focused on how Arsenal can hurt us rather than how we can hurt Arsenal. We literally showed Arsenal too much respect, in my opinion, and we've done that for every team this season. So I honestly believe Eddie Howe is trying to figure out a way of compensating for Alexander Isak. So just to summarize, guys, and listening back to this video, it's probably going to sound so negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to find solutions. But this season, with pressing intensity dialed down, we're less creative from high turnover. The thing is, pressing less doesn't completely kill your creativity. It just changes it slightly. Because think about it this way: if you're pressing and winning the ball high up the pitch, your transition is going to be so much more efficient. However, if you're winning the ball lower in the pitch or deeper in your own half, you need a little bit more structured creativity from deeper zones. But the thing is, without an elite playmaker, you're asking different profiles to do this. So you're not playing to your player's strength. So unless we had an elite wide creator or a number 10, we're not going to get much creativity playing this way. This is why in the summer I was crying out for a number 10, because I could visualize, I could see this happening. I could see Eddie Howe being a little bit more cautious in terms of pressing because of the Champions League, because we have adjusted our front line. Anthony Alanga's coming in for Murphy. Nick Valdemira's coming in for Alexander Isak. So our front line has changed. So naturally, it's going to take him a little bit of time to bed in. So what I'm saying is, our creativity is linked to our high pressing, but it also keeps your players in advanced positions. Eddie Howe is still trying to figure this right on the training pitch. The return of Johan Wissa will help with that. So that, my guys, is why we lack creativity at the minute. Do I think it'll come right? Yeah, I do. Do I trust Eddie Howe? Yeah, I do. Is it time to shout Eddie Howe out? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is, we've got to expect a little bit of this. And just to go back to saying everything will come right in the second half of the season, if we continue this way, then we need to find a different solution. So that was probably a lot of information to take in. And I'm sorry if it sounds negative. It's not. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to highlight where we are right now. And right now, we're not great. And that's me being perfectly honest. Now, the beauty about it, we've got a good manager like Eddie Howe, but we've also got a better squad than we did last season and the season before. And this is why I think it will come right and we will go on a run without losing the game. But I just think we need to get back to pressing a little bit. Of course, have some limitations. You don't need to be aggressive, intense for the full 90 minutes. Just do it in certain spells. But I don't know how you guys feel. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. But as always, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, away the lads.